This is for the players.
I'm Ryan Besson from the Pop Culturists, and this is our initial review of Detroit Become Human on PlayStation 4. So thank you to PlayStation Australia. I've been able to spend the better part of the last week with the latest title from David Cage and Quantic Dream, but I'm calling this my initial review for a couple different reasons. So this is my initial review only because David Cage and the team at Quantic Dream have a very unique style to their game production. So they are very story focused, but the story is littered with dialogue choices, branching decisions, and different endings. So having completed the game for the first time about 10 minutes ago, I have one very clear way through this game. So I will be returning over the next couple of days to go down those other paths, see what else is there, and I will have a bit more depth in my discussion on For the Players, the Pop Culturists PlayStation podcast, as it airs in this coming Monday. But anyway, Detroit Become Human takes place in Detroit, Michigan in the early days of November 2038. So exactly spot on my birthday. I'll be 49 that year. Shit. So in this future setting, androids have become a thing. Everyone has them. You have one, I have one. It does my dishes. It does your janitorial work. It does all the mindless crap that no one wants to do anymore. And that's sort of the big stemming point of the game. With a lot of the androids, they've started to become what they've referred to as a deviant, someone that has broken program, someone that has broken protocol. They've become sentient. They are aware that they exist, and they're starting to gain free will. And each of the three characters you play are directly involved with this new lease for life, for lack of a better word, that these androids are facing. So you'll play as three characters: Markus, the robot revolutionary; Kara, the android looking for a new life; and Connor, the deviant hunter. I'm going to tread lightly on explaining these characters only because with this game being so heavily story focused, the last thing I want to do is ruin it for you. So I'll mostly be talking about their performances and how they work with the overall story. So kicking off with Connor, who, if you've played the demo, you've probably seen what this guy can do. So amazingly portrayed by Brian Deckett, who I somewhat think might be a bit of an unknown dude. I've not seen him before, but that could mean nothing. He is fantastic in this. He delivers this really very dry performance. I guess being a robot, that kind of works as an advantage, right? So it's very stiff, but it's very because with Connor being somewhat as a detective, he's very analytical, and and the way he delivers his lines are very much that. It's very well thought out, very well spoken, very intelligent, and I really like Connor as a character. So seeing him grow throughout the story is probably by far one of the best things I enjoyed about this game. Not taking away from any of the other characters, of course, but I really loved Connor. I found him to be the most intriguing character for me, and I found myself getting super involved in him and his story. Next up is Kara. She was a house robot, one that's designed to look after a kid and clean the dishes and clean the house and do all that garbage. But after experiencing a traumatic event, which for those of you that have been following this game along, we're looking at the domestic violence trailer from Paris Games Week. So from this, she breaks out, and her story pretty much is her looking to find a new life, a new place where she can be free. Valerie Curry, who portrays Kara, I think she was really strong as well. Like, as she progressed in the game and became more sort of away from her robot route, she became more of a quote-unquote human. It was great to see her bring this warmth and bring this essentially bring a lot of human emotions into this game. I'm not saying everyone else is sort of like cold, heartless people, but her character is very much focused on very human traits. So we're talking like predominantly family and what comes with that. Seeing where her character starts and ends is beautiful. I really enjoyed it. It's like, although I said, as I mentioned, although I found Connor to be more compelling for me personally, the more emotional heartstrings came from Kara and her relationship with Alice, the young girl from that Paris Games Week trailer. And finally is the face that you probably already know. It's the one on the cover of the game. It's Jesse Williams and his character of Markus. You probably best know Jesse from his role in Grey's Anatomy, which I'm aware of as a show because my wife really likes it. She's watched it a lot, and I may have watched along with her. Not a lot, but enough to know what's going on, and the show's not that bad. So as I mentioned, Markus is the robot revolutionary. He's one of the first characters to really push the freedom and the fight for civil rights and the fight to have these characters become free. So he stems from sort of an upper class household with Carl, a character portrayed by Lance Henriksen, who is a well-known actor. I don't know him personally, but Dylan, one of the other co-hosts here, Pop Culturist, big fan. He was really stoked to see him pop up. So having him come from an upper class, with the character of Carl being a sort of a liberally artist, I guess is probably the easiest way to explain it. He sort of was treated differently to the other androids. He didn't have the same sort of trodden on treatment, but once he sort of breaks free and sees the world around him and see how his people are treated, it's very cool to see him grow as a character in that way and become the big face of what would be this revolution. Jesse's performance is pretty much on point. Coming as a pretty well-known actor, you're expecting a lot of good stuff out of him. Although he has one of them lovely faces that the ladies love, it is still very stilted. It's very stiff, and I think that's what makes him so great in this game, is that he uses that to his benefit to really help portray the character. He's a robot, man. Like, you're not going to get all those sort of emotional idiosyncrasies that you're going to get with people and humans. But some of those do come across, especially in Kara and a little bit with Connor as well. And it's those subtle things that make Connor fantastic. And then another character that I should probably mention is Hank, who is one of the detectives. He's one of the lieutenants at the Detroit Police, played by Clancy Brown. Once again, an incredibly well-known actor. He's done many, many cool things, but for me personally, he is the voice of Mr. Krabs. So that was really cool to see him pop up and not do the voice, obviously, but just be a tremendous character. As a supplementary character, you do spend a lot of time with him, with Connor, but you get to really understand him and his backstory and where he comes from and why he makes the decisions that he does. Although the performances are pretty fantastic, they would no way be as amazing if it wasn't for the graphical fidelity of this title. The motion capture on this game is pretty fantastic. It never crosses the line into uncanny valley territory, but it's unnervingly real in the best way possible. Like, there are particular scenes, particular moments where it feels like you are watching a TV show, you're watching a movie. Like, I don't think it would ever go into like you're looking at a real person, because the game is very much shot in that cinema-esque scope. So you do sort of constantly feel that you're watching a movie, which is no slight to the game at all. In order to offset some of the high-end visuals of the motion capture and some of the character performances, some of the smaller details around the world aren't quite as sharp and as clean as they kind of should be. So you'll notice that door handles, as an example, aren't really quite circular. They're a little bit jaggy, but it's kind of something that you can sort of not really pay attention to and kind of focus it away just because everything else is just so fantastic. But as I mentioned at the start, the game is very story driven. It's very much focused on what the game wants you to tell. So although it is open-ended in terms of there's multiple endings, and there's a lot of decision trees, there's a lot of branching, so you can tell the story that you want, it is very clearly defined of where it wants you to end up. I don't see that as a bad thing. I don't mind if it pulls me out to bring me back into kind of a couple of different endings. Compared to other David Cage games and other Quantic Dream games, I think this may be the best one he's told in terms of the story. I found myself I was compelled the whole way through. Like, I never really found any dips, anything that bored me personally. I was invested in all these characters and the story that they were telling. I wanted to see how Markus unites this new race of people. I wanted to see if Kara can make that new life, if she can escape. I wanted to see, although it kind of contradicts what Connor's doing, what Markus is doing, I wanted to see Connor be that guy. I wanted to see Connor catch the bad guys. I wanted to see Connor become a new character and grow. And the story really helped that. And I think having that interactive story and allowing me to make the dialogue decisions, but not in like an arbitrary fashion, I do really feel that the decisions that I made actively changed the path of this game. Having spoken with Dylan, and we've sort of talked about the experiences that we've had, there are some very, very clear divergence here. Is that the right expression? I'm not sure. But there's very clearly different scenarios that we've had. Granted, they're heading along the same path, but there's very big differences. Like, he has literally had characters die that I haven't, and they're involved pretty much the whole way through. So I'm baffled to see how this character wouldn't be involved in the story. An example, I saved a character early on that I rocked up later in the game. I was like, what the fuck? Like, this is cool. And like, granted, that particular example wasn't game changing. It was a really cool way to sort of show that the decisions that you've made, the paths that you have taken, are actively changing the story. So at the end of every chapter, you get to see a flowchart. So the flowchart is the path that you've taken through that section of the story. Sometimes you can look at that and just get straight up anxiety, like unquestionably, like it freaks the fuck out. But it also does show where this game is going. Now, honestly, many of them are sort of relatively unimpressive and smallish decisions that really won't overly change the story itself, but it does show that you really do pick what characters look at. You get to pick at what decisions are made, and I really dug that a lot. But one of the big things we should address in this game is gameplay, because in terms of that story and how it is very interactive and how it is very pushing you down particular paths, you are not controlling the game in the regular sense. So think Uncharted, you're not picking where you climb, picking who you shoot, that sort of stuff. Or like God of War, you're not the one throwing the axe. The game has a lot of quick time events to sort of really use a lot of the action steps to really tell the story. I dig this a lot personally. I think it helps keep the story in check. It keeps me directly involved with the story without sort of drifting off and doing something else. And it doesn't slow down the pace of the game for me. If anything, it keeps it nice and lively. So when you get in particular fights, as an example, you have like literal split seconds to start pressing buttons to get the right chain of buttons, the right chain, the right list of actions, chain of actions, the right course of events to make you come out of that fight unscathed. And I actually found myself like with my heart racing during those moments, because I'm like, fuck, I've got, you know, like, because I was so invested in what was going on, I needed to see this go well. I needed to make sure I pressed the right things. And I really enjoyed that. One thing that is still present in this game, for good or bad, is that weird bit of jerkiness. Now, as you do have those free movement moments where you can control the character and you can walk around the scenes, and there is that weird kind of, for lack of better words, I just said jerkiness. So nothing is more story breaking, I guess, or immersion breaking than when a cutscene ends and you have control and relatively seamless transition between the two, and you go to move and the character kind of jerks because it's kind of tank control a little bit, but with a little bit of flexibility. It handles pretty much like what you've seen in other Quantic Dream games. It is certainly smoother than my previous experiences with those titles, like Heavy Rain, like Beyond Two Souls, and even going back as Indigo Prophecy or Fahrenheit, as it's known here in Australia, back on the PS2. In no way does it make the game unplayable. It's fine. It does limit some sort of accuracy. Like there are times where I'm trying to talk to a particular character or focus on a particular item on the ground or whatever. The finesse is gone. I'm like, no, pick it up. God damn it. We'll wrap it up there, mostly because the game is very story focused, and I don't want to ramble on into any spoilers. Now, I think I may have touched on some potentially spoiler things so far, so apologies in advance if I have, but overall, I thoroughly enjoyed my time with Detroit Become Human. I was really entrenched in that story. I thought it was fantastic. Although I found the story really intriguing and really engaging, I did feel that sometimes it did get a little bit lost in its messaging and got a little bit too on the nose at some points. Now, there's no mistaking that this game is very much clearly analogy to the civil rights of the African Americans. However, there are some times where it's a little bit too direct, and like, although you're talking about these androids' rights, you're like, all right, step back a little bit. You're kind of losing me here because you're not saying it's a bad thing. It's just that you're getting a little bit too almost looking at the camera and going, human rights are really important, which they are. It's just it kind of steps out of its story for a little bit. An example is with Markus. Markus is shown to be somewhat of a Christ-like figure, a leader of the people, as he converts all these androids to be free and to move and that way. And there are some direct times where that's really on the nose. There's zero subtlety there. An exact example is as you're sitting in a church. Like, just unquestionably, like, bing! If you didn't understand that Markus is a somewhat of a Jesus-like figure, now you're seeing it. All right, did you get it? Cool. And on top of that, like, well, the way the androids are treated, once shit sort of hits the fan, they get put into camps where they're taken and deactivated and destroyed. So in a not so reminiscent way of sort of like old conflicts like World War II and sort of the Holocaust side of things, just eliminating an entire race. Those ones were a little bit somewhat subtle, but somewhat not. Don't get me wrong. The comparisons to real world events or to real world circumstances it was really good. It sort of did relate. It kept it grounded in that way, and I really enjoyed it. Just sometimes a little too on the nose. So Detroit Become Human is a great game. I really, really enjoyed it. I do certainly think it's the best of David Cage's work up until this point, and the Quantic Dream team, of course. Can't dismiss them. There are very clear improvements in their storytelling and how they want to portray their games as these interactive movies. And that progression is there, and it's spot on. And the performances are across the board. So as I mentioned, with Jesse Williams, Valerie Curry, and Brian Deckett, like the three of them bring something so good to this game. And I was compelled in every single one of them, and I wanted to see their story. I wanted to see where they ended up. In terms of the story was fascinating. It was entrenching, probably the wrong word, but like it brought me in. I wanted to see it all. As I said, like what was supposed to be an hour session became 5. Like I just was sucked into this game, and I wanted to see where it went. So aside from some janky controls and some on-the-nose storytelling, I think it's effing fantastic. Is it my game of the year? No, that's still God of War at this point, but this is a fantastic experience. I think the best way to explain this, and this is not derogatory in any way, it's the best movie that I've ever played. but this game is just rad. It is really, really good. And as long as you know what you're in for, when you go in, you're knowing you're getting that interactive storytelling experience, and you're open to the idea of making decisions and potential multiple playthroughs to really break down what they're trying to say and what the story is supposed to be, it is the game for you. It's not for the everyday person. I wouldn't recommend this to everyone by any means, but I love it. It's continuing the strength of the PlayStation exclusive so far. There's no other experience like it. Quantic Dream and David Cage make something truly amazing here. But let me know what you guys think of Detroit Become Human if you've already got your hands on it yet. Or let me know why you're excited for it or why you're not so excited for it. Chuck those comments below and I'll be sure to jump in there and have a chat with you. But anyway, once again, thank you to PlayStation Australia for providing us the code for this game. We're incredibly grateful every time these guys are nice enough to help us out. But until the next one, I'm Ryan Betson from the Pop Culturists, and that was our review of Detroit Become Human on the PlayStation 4.